All right, so we are sitting with Tasneem. I've sort of interrupted the introduction that she's supposed to give herself, but Tasneem is going to speak to us from a perspective that, for me personally, I think is one that's very, very interesting in regards to what's currently happening in the country. So, to start off, if I can ask Tasneem if you can just introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Assalamu alaikum, Zaid. Thank you for having me. My name is Tasneem Sayed. I'm from Potchefstroom. I'm a senior lecturer at the Northwest University Faculty of Health Sciences, School of Psychosocial Health, and my research interests are resilience, mental health, and well-being.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. A field that I'm very interested in myself, so this is going to be interesting for me. And I'm really excited to hear some of your answers with regards to this current situation. So let's start off with one of the first questions. How does the unrest of the last few days affect somebody psychologically? And we're talking about the business owner, the parent, and even for a child as well. How does what's happened over the last few days and the last week or so affect somebody psychologically?
Well, Zaid, in Gauteng and particularly KZN has been devastated by the situation. Social media provided us with visuals of the situation as it was. And we witnessed buildings being set on fire. We witnessed people queuing for food and basic other necessities. This unrest disrupts our daily lives, of course. And this results in feelings of anxiety, feelings of apprehension and worry. And if left untreated, it can develop into PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Those who have personally witnessed it, particularly in KZN, will experience elevated levels of stress and anxiety. So whether you are a business owner, a child, or a parent, you're likely to encounter a barrage of emotions that are, of course, difficult to process. These overwhelming collections of emotions can have a detrimental effect on one's mental health.
Right.
And mental health is associated with a sense of positive well-being on emotional, cognitive, and social levels, which is critical for human development, as mental health is integral to human health and well-being. As a result, one cannot ignore these emotions, and in doing so may result in a disruption of daily functioning. We all want to feel elevated levels, increased levels of positive well-being. So we need to have our mental health checked all the time.
Yes, yes, yes. So with this in mind then, how does one actually pick up the pieces and move on from this kind of damage and this kind of trauma that can be caused by a situation like this?
To move forward, one must identify, acknowledge, and then process the emotions. All of these emotions needs to be processed. Thus, you must first acknowledge, why are you angry? Why are you depressed? Why are you uncertain? And then process these emotions in a healthy way. So you can speak to a mental health professional or someone that you can trust and share your feelings about how these events have affected you. As a result, many people have lost their jobs, their sense of purpose, as well as a sense of security. These losses imply grief, which has 5 stages. So these 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and lastly, acceptance. So individual must process and progress through all of these stages of grief in order to come to terms with their losses and renew their strength and hope. Of course, meditation and prayer should also be emphasized because they bring to the heart peace and contentment.
Very well said. Very well said. So a question from a slightly different angle now. When a parent comes home or an adult comes back to their community having looted and stolen, and they celebrate this kind of behavior, what kind of effect does this have on a child?
So from my perspective, it's a nature versus nurture debate. And in this situation, the nurture dimension carries more weight than the nature dimension. So nurture refers to environmental characteristics such as the weather outside or external influence, childhood experiences, the type of school that you went to, the friends that you have, trauma, culture, religion, and of course relationships. And then nature, on the other hand, refers to biologically determined characteristics. So your hair color, or how tall you are, your predisposition to illnesses. So basically, nature refers to hereditary. So a child who observes their parents' behavior and who has been raised with a particular parenting style will, of course, be influenced by the parents' behavior. So in general, people learn through observation of others' behavior.
Right.
Therefore, if a parent engages in any unacceptable behavior, the child sees this and the child perceives it as normal. And they will be conditioned to engage in this behavior, even if the rest of society thinks it's wrong and unacceptable. And this may result in children mimicking their parents' behavior. So in actual fact, parenting styles, behavior modification, and instilling good morals in children should already begin early in a young age for them to develop into contributing members of society.
So then, with that in mind, that it's that way of thinking, developed through nurture, as you said. How does one then undo or change that kind of thinking or that kind of behavior?
Zaid, I think in order to change or alter behavior, one has to alter their thinking, also the attitude. Attitude of thought results in emotion or how you feel, which results in behavior. So if someone is influenced to believe that stealing or looting is acceptable and that it provides them with a sense of fulfillment, then looting will result from their behavior.
Right.
But if they believe that looting will have an adverse effect on the lives of others as well as their own, and it will make them feel a sense of heartbreak, they will oppose it. Therefore, in order to alter your behavior, you must alter your attitude and your thinking. Numerous individuals are influenced by others, and this influence has an effect on your attitude. So I would suggest that one interacts with people who have a positive influence on them and has the ability to discern what is right and what is wrong, and how one's actions eventually affect them as well as those around them.
And I think I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm trying to picture the environment that a lot of these children grow up in. When we go out onto a lot of the drives that we do, we go out into these areas and we see the environment that these kids are exposed to. You're talking about kids as young as 7 and 8 years old that are used to seeing adults and parents walking around completely drunk in the streets in the middle of the afternoon. So that environment, it's very difficult for them then to find those kinds of people that are going to give them a different perspective, that are going to show them a different way of looking at things and to perceive things in a way that's more beneficial, not only to themselves, but also to those that are around them. How do you even give somebody that environment who's growing up in that space? Where do they go to get that? What do you think one could do to try to bring that to an area or to a township that doesn't have access to something like that?
Well, it is very difficult, especially if that's all they know. They don't know otherwise. They only know parents that drink or abuse each other, gender-based violence. That is what they grow up in, and that for them is probably normal. An example that I can give you is many students come from rural environments.
Right.
And when they come to university, we expect them to register online, to do their assignments online, to know how to work a computer, to manage time and to do their assignments on time and come to class on time, and also in our degree, they need to have a driver's license because they would be going to home visits, such things like that. So we expect all of this from them, but they grew up in a totally different environment. So I would suggest that we need to have educational programs for these students or for these children, so they get to know what is out there. We need to make them aware. We also need to bring in their parents and their caregivers, because they are with their caregivers the whole day.
Right.
They go to school for a couple of hours and they can be conditioned otherwise in school. But if they don't have the support of their caregivers or their parents or their siblings, it's very difficult to change behavior.
That makes a lot of sense. So while it may seem like a very difficult task, if nobody makes the effort to bring about that kind of a change and to provide them with that kind of environment and provide them with that kind of thinking and perception, this will never change then.
No, it won't. Then we're living with the same problems that our parents and grandparents were living. Lack of education, lack of basic resources, basic necessities. And we need to give children those basic resources and necessities in order to reach self-actualization. They won't be able to think for themselves if they don't have the support of individuals.
Right.
And if they don't grow up in a good, supportive environment. And unfortunately, if we look at the poverty and the unemployment rates in South Africa, it's difficult to make sense of that. And it's difficult to take all of the children together and bring them up in a comfortable, education-wise environment. So the least what we can do is go out into those rural areas, encourage, empower school teachers, community leaders, community members to be able to instill good morals and renew their strength and renew their hope. And from there, maybe we can see some sort of change.
I like what you're saying, Taslim. Who knows? Perhaps in the pipeline, there's an opportunity for the Sultan Bau Center to be able to go out and do something like that, to put a project together that allows us to be able to go out into those communities, because I think it needs to be done. I think what's happening in KZN has been a big eye-opener for us, that we can't sit back. We can't sit back and just expect this country to change on its own. The government does what it does, but we as the citizens of this country also need to take responsibility and do whatever we can to bring that change. As difficult as it's going to be, we have to start somewhere.
And I think the people, the citizens of KZN have already empowered us to embark on a journey like that. Without the government's help, without their assistance, without their support, normal individual people who wake up early, who go to their job, those are the people who actually are making the difference now. They are collecting formula, they are collecting nappies, they are bringing communities together, whether you're black or white, whether you're Indian, whether you belong to a different faith. It's normal citizens in society, whether they have an education, whether they are a doctor or a professor, they are coming together. And I think this is just the beginning of an empowering journey where we can unite as individuals and make a difference to society, and especially children. Because if now these children are witnessing the unity, imagine what kindness they can actually show when they grow up one day, inshallah.
Exactly. I don't think I'm going to add anything to that, because I think you've said it so perfectly in closing with those few words, Taslim. So I'm going to say thank you to you for spending some time with us and giving us your perspective on what's currently happening. I think the idea with our newsletter in this month is to try and give the viewers a holistic view of what's currently happening. I mean, we each experience it from our own shoes and from our own eyes and the way that we see things. But when we look at it holistically, it gives us a better idea of where we are and what it is that we can do to try to bring that positive change. So thank you for spending this time with us and having this chat and giving us your insight and your thoughts. I think it's been extremely valuable, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.